Hey, deserving listeners, Ed and Liz, let's continue watching.
You're going to be flying back to your daddy from San Diego?
I did not know that.
I did have to have a talk with Riley saying that the wedding was no longer happening, that Ed's not going to be in her life anymore. You know, she's disappointed.
Yeah, as I've said before, I'm not a fan of the child Riley being on the show. I was so happy that Liz's kid, for so long, for so many years, was never on the show. They would occasionally refer to her, but she wasn't on the show. Then suddenly this season she's on, and I'm thinking, why? What? You know, obviously there was a decision, because I'm guessing that 90 Day Fiancé, the show, wanted her on, or at least occasionally. I don't know that, but you know, I assumed that Liz had been pushing back on that, and then suddenly now it's different. I just don't. And then when stuff, you know, if it's them, well, this season, you know, the typical things are happening. The fighting on camera, and Riley's there being the parentified one. And if children are on the show and they're just at the park and there's an interview with the kid and the kid's like, yeah, I like living in Arkansas or whatever, you know, something light and not like this. We just saw, I don't know if I was able to show this clip, but Liz says, you know that the wedding's off and you're going back to live with your dad and blah, 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 and we're moving, we might not ever come back here. And Riley says, I did not know that. And the way that she says it is another indication of parentification. If I was not parentified, if you had asked me on camera when I was Riley's age a question like that, I would have said something nonsensical or immature or overreactive. The way that she acted on camera right there was like an adult, and we have to remember that she's not. And the only reason why she would act like that is because she has to, and she doesn't want to. Kids don't want to act like adults. Why would they? So, you know, I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe Riley doesn't have parentification. Maybe she's just that way. That's rare, but who knows? Anyway, so the other thing is that Liz is saying, oh, you know, Riley's disappointed. Yeah, and, you know, I don't know how this is affecting Riley. I actually don't want to know, because that would mean that we would all know, and she should not be exposed in that way for a variety of reasons, for her own safety, and also just for the ethical practice of reality. If we're going to enjoy reality TV, we have to feel good, like we don't have to take a shower afterwards, and this kind of stuff ruins it. It's like it's like buying clothes that's from a sweatshop or something. It's to entertain ourselves through something that is potentially harming. Now, you know, even if the potential harm is like 10%, it's pretty low likelihood, or even 5%, well, why take the risk? We don't need Riley at all. We don't need Riley at all. Riley has nothing to do with what the story that we follow for, at least for me anyway. So anyway, I also want to point out, again, I don't know Riley, but I want to point out that disappointment might be the least of Riley's problems. There are so many things that children can be traumatized through something like this. You know, if we have a friend that has a falling out with their fiancé and they pull out of the wedding. I actually had a friend like that that was almost left at the altar, but it was, I don't know, a few weeks before, maybe like a couple months before the wedding. And it was devastating for him. But it wasn't for me. I mean, it was hard for me-ish, and I felt obviously bad for my friend and angry at her, kind of, I guess. I don't know. But my life and my, stability didn't depend on that. Children, they do. There are so many things that they are watching and depending on and absorbing from their parents. One being, what is it to love someone? What is it to commit? What is loyalty? And when they see, oh, I see, loyalty doesn't really exist. And love is with a major asterisk. And also, my mother might not be lovable, and maybe I'm not lovable, or maybe my mother isn't competent. Why would she do this? And when I think about it, it's not really that wise what she has done. Upended everything, moved me as well. I mean, visitation, I believe. Committed to this thing that has, I know, at least from my perspective, because I've been exposed to it, that they break up. I don't know if Riley knows about every breakup, but I'm just going to take a guess and say she knows about some, if not all. All of those become personalized. For my friend to be left at the altar, that doesn't cause me to generally for myself question my lovability or my chances at meeting someone that would love me and not leave me at the altar. I don't translate that to my life. When you're a child, you do. You absolutely do. You're looking to your parents in particular for a guide of what will happen to me. If Ed can leave Liz and me, by the way, because that's what's happening, she might not ever see Liz again. And that's a lesson that she learns. Oh, so when someone loves me or when I start to depend on someone, that could be upended completely out of nowhere. And maybe it's my fault because children will do that. So I don't know about Riley. I have no idea. But if you're a child of divorce, you know.
Right now, it's very painful to be around Ed. He never cares to talk or anything. So Riley and I are gonna go back to San Diego for a little bit because I truly don't know where to go from here. And I need to figure out if I'm gonna be staying in Arkansas, if I'm gonna potentially move back to San Diego. I need to figure out what I'm gonna do for work.
Yeah, and no shame if you are going or have gone or are considering going through a divorce and you have kids. It happens. It's not the end of the world. How do you navigate it, though? How do you prevent the harm or lower the risk of harm to children? There's a way. In this situation, if Riley had almost no knowledge of if Riley had no knowledge of any of the fighting between Liz and Ed, that would be ideal. If Riley's dependency on Ed was kept to a minimum, because it would not be hard to predict from anyone, particularly Liz, that maybe this won't be forever. Maybe it will. Hopefully it will. But until we get 3 years of not breaking up, I'm not going to expose Riley to Ed very much beyond that. This willy-nilly attitude of just oh, we've been dating for a month, so now let's get the child to latch on, because kids will latch on to people quickly. For adults, it might take us a while to warm up. It might take us decades, really, once you get to a certain age. But as a kid, especially when you lack that stability and those desires of two parents. Now, what I don't know is what's happening for Riley with her father. We have seen none of the father. The father never gets talked about, really, right? So, from my understanding, Riley is in primary custody with him, and that Liz has a visitation. I don't know what the exact arrangement is, but Riley's out with Liz in Arkansas for the summer. I don't know to what length of time that is. It could be a couple of weeks. It could be 8 weeks. Who knows? But maybe with Riley's father and maybe a step parent, an extended family, maybe Riley has a lot of her attachment needs met. Given the way that, and maybe her parentification mode only exists in the presence of Liz, and when she is at home with Dad, she is able to be a kid. I don't know. That's my hope, honestly. But the way that Riley acts, the way the signs of the parentification is concerning. I don't know. I have no idea. It's edited. It's glimpses of moments. I know enough to know that I can't know anything, but we can use it as a jumping off point, right?
So I just want to get out of here.
Can I have a minute with Riley?
I think his mug says, Big Ed is my spirit animal. I think that's what his mug is. Now, you know, I have my own merch and use it as well, so who am I to say? But I don't know. It's just kind of...
Yes.
I just want to apologize. I'm not sure when I might get to see you again.
I accept your apology.
You do?
I mean, God bless her, but again, I guess I can use it as a jumping off point. I don't know about Riley. I have no idea. But I see, if I saw this in my office, I would use it as another tick in the column of parentification. All right, so just chiming in here, the rest of this video will be for members of the YouTube channel. I don't know why I did that. Sometimes I do that when I'm talking with huh? So there's that. So if you want to see the rest of this, become a member. Otherwise, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.